Greetings fellow guitar travellers, it's Reverend J Parker here and welcome to another episode of Theory and Harmony, and today we're going to be covering Augmented Gateway, which is a direct follow-on to the last episode which was Diminished Gateway, but now it's even better, now it's even bigger, it's Augmented Gateway. Awesome. Right, before we get into that, let's encourage you to look at my website www.reverendjparker.com. Tons of free stuff on that site. As you know, you can also go to SoundCloud, Reverend J Parker, lots of backing tracks there for you. You can hit me up on Facebook, my name, Reverend J Parker, how predictable, and on Twitter as well. Okay, now, so let's get today's lesson, the Augmented Gateway. Do not be afraid, be very afraid. Let's theory. Okay, let's get into this Augmented Gateway. First of all, why should we bother learning about it? Well, it enables us to modulate between very distant keys. We can take two keys which we would not normally be able to juxtapose and move smoothly between them, much like our Stargate concept we had. In the Diminished Gateway, in this case, the intervals are even wider between the keys. Alright, so first of all let's address what an augmented chord actually is. An augmented chord is a major triad which has had its fifth degree raised a semitone. So let's give you a very prosaic example. Here's C major. Oh, C major chord, and we're going to take the fifth degree, which is G in this case, we're going to sharpen it to G sharp, raising it. And this produces our rather interesting, floaty and mysterious sounding augmented chord. So, construction of augmented is 1, 3, sharp 5, or if you must root major third and augmented fifth, C augmented in that case would be C, E, G sharp, right, a C on top as well. So, where does this chord actually come from? The augmented triad is generated by two scales. It comes out of two scales. It's generated by either a harmonic minor scale or a melodic minor scale. Both of these scales produce an augmented triad on the third degree of the scale. Alright, so if we have a C augmented, what scale is actually producing that? And the answer is it's actually some sort of A scale. A minor, A harmonic minor, or A melodic minor. Okay, right, now let's just investigate the notes and the intervals between the notes in this augmented chord. So let's take the note of C to E. What interval is that? And the answer is that's the interval of a major third, or the distance of 4 semitones. Okay? And then let's look at the interval between E and G sharp. What interval is that? That is also an interval of a major third, which is 4 semitones. And then the interval between the G sharp and the C an octave above, it's another major third, the interval of 4 semitones. So what we've done is we've taken the 12 semitones that comprises the octave and we've chopped them into 3 equal increments of 4 semitones. Alright, so it's a symmetric chord or symmetric arrangement of the intervals, and in much the same way that when we look at a diminished seventh chord, it's a symmetric arrangement of the intervals, this time in groups of minor thirds. So we've got 4 minor thirds making up a diminished seventh chord. In augmented chords we've got the interval of 3 major thirds covering the octave, so they're symmetric in the same way that a diminished seventh chord is symmetric. Alright, so how can we exploit the property of these symmetric augmented chords? Now, what it means is that C augmented and E augmented and G sharp augmented are all fundamentally the same chord because they contain the same notes. Now, if you don't believe me, let's just have a look. C augmented is C, E, G sharp, C. E augmented is E, G sharp, C, E. And then G sharp augmented is G sharp, C, E, G sharp, right? So different order to the notes, of course, but it's the same notes. We're not using any different notes. So you can see this really is the holy trinity of chords because it's 3 chords in 1 and it's 1 chord in 3. C augmented is E augmented is G sharp augmented. They're all just inversions of each other, right? Alright, so we need to understand now how an augmented chord actually functions musically. And the way it functions musically is it substitutes directly for a dominant seventh chord. So, for instance, let's say we had this very cheesy sounding chord progression. We've got a 1, 6, 2, 5 in F major, which would be F major 7, D minor 7, G minor 7, C7. Now what we can do is we can swap out or substitute the C7 chord for C augmented, and it will resolve back to the 1 chord absolutely fine. So it's very easy to use it in a substitution context. You just replace the dominant 7th chord with an augmented triad on exactly the same root as the dominant chord. In fact, it's quite common to hear the dominant chord, then the augmented triad, then the resolution back to the tonic. For instance, C7, C augmented, F major 7 in this case. Alright, so let's just play that with a bit of rhythmic context for you. So 3, 4. So you can hear the resolution sounds absolutely perfect. Now, because it's substituting for a dominant chord, it really has all the same properties as a dominant chord because it is a dominant function at this point. So as long as the root resolves down a fifth from C to F in this case, it doesn't matter what quality of chord it resolves to. It will resolve quite happily to some sort of major sounding chord, F major say. It will resolve very happily to F minor. It will even resolve to F7. That's fine as well. It will even resolve to, say, -7 flat 5, which would then probably resolve somewhere else. Probably. Alright. So the point is, as long as the root resolves down a fifth, it doesn't matter what quality you resolve to. But in terms of major and minor keys, we can access at least F major and F minor from the C augmented triad. Either resolution sounds absolutely fine. Now you can probably see where this is going. If we take the augmented triad, C augmented triad, invert it, a major third, we invert to E augmented, which is still the same notes as C augmented, so it's still the same chord, right? However, because this is now standing in place of not C7, but the chord of E7, we can now resolve down a fifth from E augmented to either A major or A minor. And either modulation or resolution, I should say at this point, either resolution sounds fine. My ear tells me that's absolutely fine. Alright, so we can access A major and A minor. Now again, we can take our augmented triad, we can invert again, one more major third to G sharp augmented, and what can we access? Well, if this G sharp augmented chord is standing in place of G sharp 7, we can access either C sharp major or C sharp minor. Either resolution sounds absolutely fine. Okay, so let's just think about this. From our one augmented chord, how many different tonal centers, keys can we access? Well, C augmented can access F major or F minor sounding tonalities. Move up a major third, we can access A major or A minor. Move up another major third, we can access C sharp major or C sharp minor tonalities. So one augmented chord can access 6 different keys or tonalities. And these tonalities, because of the interval between the augmented chords, which is a major third, are very far apart, and you would never normally be able to modulate between such distant keys in a smooth way. Here's a quick example. Let's say we wanted to get between the key of F major and the key of C sharp minor. Now, normally, if you were to juxtapose those two chords, I do like that word juxtapose, if you were to take those two chords and put them side by side, it sounds horrible. Now, why does it sound horrible or at least strange? Well, the reason is that there's no key, there's no diatonic key that contains both F major and C sharp minor. There just isn't one. And that's why the ear tells you that, oh wait a minute, those chords are not related. You don't need to know anything about music theory to know whether chords are related or not. If you come across a chord change which sounds pleasant, for instance, your ear goes automatically, that sounds fine, they must be related, because they are. If you play something that's not related, like this, your ear will automatically tell you, oh, something is wrong here, there's no connection here, right? So the point is, it's not easy to get between keys which are completely unrelated, at least not in a smooth way. But let's wheel out our augmented gateway and see what happens. So we've got our F major chord, and then let's go to D minus 7, G minus 7, C7, So it's a 1, 6, 2, 5 and F. Employ the gateway now. So open up the Stargate, Kurt Russell like going through the Stargate. C augmented, E augmented, G sharp augmented. And now C sharp minor. And did it not sound seamless? The modulation into C sharp minor should have sounded imperceptible. Didn't even really sound like a key change. Let's put some rhythm in this bad boy. Sneaky diminished gateway at the end to end up in B flat major, but you can see the modulation into the C sharp minor sounded utterly seamless. Let's just wheel out for you another couple of examples of this. Here's another sneaky example. Because we used an augmented gateway and then also a couple of diminished gateways. So let me just analyse that for you. We started off in the key of A major and we had A major 7, C sharp minor 7, D major 7 and E7. Now these four chords are diatonic to A major, so this would be 1, 3, 4, 5 in A major. Now from that point I changed the E7 to E augmented, and then in this case inverted down to C augmented, and that became the direct substitution for C7, which enabled us to get to the key of F major. There we go, there's our modulation into F, then a chord progression in F, F major 7, G minor 7, B flat major 7, C7 sus4, C7, that's diatonic to F major, that would be 1, 2, 4, 5, here's a diminished gateway, C sharp diminished, 7th, resolving up to D minor. Now I'm not going to cover the function of the diminished gateway. If you wonder what I'm doing at this point, go back and watch the video about diminished gateway. And then another one right away, diminished gateway, D sharp diminished, leading to E7 sus4. Remember that our diminished 7th chord does not care what quality of chord it resolves to, as long as it resolves up, in this case a semitone, E7 sus4, E7, which enables us to get back to A major. And we could start the whole thing again, or we could have gone to A minor from that point and gone to a whole bunch of other keys. The point is, with these two gateway techniques, with the diminished gateway and in the augmented gateway, your possibilities for seamless modulation are pretty much endless. You can get around almost any key. And one of the lessons to take away from this is that when you really understand harmony on a deep level, you understand how chords work and how they move, you can actually make them do anything. You can shape them, you can mold them, you can force them to go down pathways that normally you would think that they would not be able to go down just by the application of some of these ideas. So it's well worth getting into if you want to expand the interest, the harmonic interest and complexity of your compositions. Or maybe you just want to stick with 1, 4, 5, C, F and G. If you want to do that and you can write good songs, good on you. Doesn't make any difference. But for those of us that want to expand harmony, are fascinated by harmony, which is one of my great loves, the thing I really love about music is harmony and what you can do with it, then this stuff is profoundly interesting and useful. Okay, so that'll do for this week's lesson. I'll check you out for another lesson, Theory and Harmony. Don't forget to check out the website, www.rowanjparker.com, and subscribe if you like. Stick the email address in, hit subscribe, and you've got a whole ton of other free stuff. Anyway, enough of that self-promoting mince. I will see you next time. Until then, farewell.